King of Podcasts Radio Network proudly presents the Wrestling is Real podcast, because wrestling needs us.
My voice is shot tonight, but I didn't want it to be where I did not do a show for all of you, because I've done so many rants on creative over the past 9 years on this program. I wanted to just take some clips from only the last 5 years of episodes to show you how much of a broken record we are complaining about creative in WWE on a regular basis. So I'm going to play them in order, going back to 2016 to current day today. And just notice how often we have the same arguments, the same complaints about this company that are left unanswered and unresponded. So enjoy some of my previous rants with a better voice here on the Wrestling is Real podcast.
The thing is that it's the shine that some of these wrestlers got before they got here is the only praise that they have, the only kind of adulation, the only kind of response is for what they have done. But WWE, by bringing them on the main roster, have done nothing to enhance said talent. As far as I'm concerned, the only person so far, actually two people so far, that have really gotten a real rub of what's going on being on the main roster now is AJ Styles and Seth Rollins. Those two have actually benefited with actual storylines. AJ Styles benefits from the John Cena storyline, from the Chris Jericho storyline before that, up until now. Because really, I mean, the fact he's going up against Dean Ambrose is just because of the fact that Dean Ambrose holds the title, and he's standing in the way from AJ Styles being champion. Just that one extra step. But the match leading up to it, even though we think the match will be very good, nothing is there that leads us to say, oh, this is going to be so much more. No, not at all. So Sasha isn't getting pushed any more than she was. Charlotte, I guess they put her in with Ric Flair. They took him away. They put in Dana Brooke. And Charlotte is just kind of there. But having Dana Brooke there has not... Dana Brooke has not been helped at all by pairing her up with Charlotte. There's just no rub. I mean, I don't feel any sympathy for Dana Brooke being, hazed by Charlotte at all. It just doesn't feel like anything at all. And then Bayley, among all people, in that women's division, and she comes in, and there's nothing extra they have done to help build this character. Like, we didn't do any introduction to Bayley at all. And we're just taking exactly what was NXT. She's not getting the praise that she did. She's not getting the adulation. Like, you hear a couple of guys in the crowd faintly trying to start, hey, we want some Bayley. They want to get those chants going, but guess what? This casual fan crowd, these purists that are in a blinders on, in a bubble, that don't watch anything else but what's on Monday and Tuesday nights, so they don't give a shit what's on NXT. They don't care what was going on outside of here. If it was Japan, if it was somewhere else, they just don't care. So no real significant build-up for any of these stars. And the ones that do, obviously they're very snugly close to people at the top. So Kevin Owens gets a storyline, and now he's champion. Seth Rollins gets a storyline. That's where he's going to be in a match with things going on there. Roman Reigns, I don't get the whole idea of wanting to include him into a match with Reigns and Owens at Clash of Champions. Doesn't make sense to me. But anyway, that's another point. I'm just saying to myself, a couple of people are actually getting tended to. Therefore, this brand split, I'm still waiting for results. We're sitting here, 7 weeks removed from that. We've had SummerSlam. And I feel like nothing has changed. And it's amazing where I might be talking about TNA, but TNA, I mean, you hear what the Hardys are doing. You hear about the K, the new faces, the new things that are going on, learning all this stuff about these people, and all of a sudden, you're getting storylines with Drew Galloway and EC3, and you get the build with Eli Drake, and then the X division, and the women's division. There's all stories behind them. Am I the only one seeing that TNA actually has their act together creatively more than what WWE does? More than what WWE has? Because think about it. And TNA is a much smaller company with a tenth of the audience. And probably even a tenth or less of the staffing. And less than 1/10 of 1% of the money and resources. And somehow, Jeremy Borash or whoever else with the TNA films and the drones, all these gadgets that Jeremy Borash probably keeps JB in the back, he uses to help build this company of his. And the company he's been working for since day one. Okay. All the stuff he probably does back there. And then the other people were within, like Jeff and Matt. Oh, they're allowing the people to just film in their home. They're doing things where they're using what they have. And they're able to build storylines. Like, I don't even know what house to use for the Rosemary thing. I don't know which penthouse suite they used for the EC3 Drew Galloway thing for the other night. I don't know. But all I know is that I see all these things going on with WWE that is just not creative at all. No forethought, no thinking whatsoever. They're just sitting there with no depth at all. It's as if there's no time to spend. And I'm just wondering if the creative team back there is just saying, well, now you have this brand split on us and we have all this talent to build and we just don't have time. I wouldn't even think it's a bad problem. I'm thinking if you're creative, you're not working with the same people that you were doing with. Let me be the devil's advocate here. Okay. A couple of years ago, you were dealing with Kane, Big Show, Mark Henry, and having to just always find things for them to keep rehashing them, reincorporating them somehow into storyline, putting them in somewhere else. But what the fans are enjoying is all these fresh new faces that are out there. For the last 2 years, that's what we've gotten. The Women's Revolution. We have all these call-ups from NXT. We have all these people that came from Japan. And just saying to myself, on both the NXT and the WWE main roster, look at all these fresh new faces that you have on here that are working around some of the mainstays like Randy Orton, Brock Lesnar, Kane, John Cena. And I'm saying to myself, wow, you have all these different faces that are working with each other, and we're getting all these fresh matchups. And remember, we have all these people that we're so excited and elated to have that are now in WWE by the likes of Cesaro, Kevin Owens, Sami Zayn, Neville, Finn Balor until he got hurt. Look at all this talent that you have that people were praising to the rafters at NXT. And now they're here. NXT did its job, preparing them to be here. But nothing is being done by the main roster and by the WWE and SmackDown creative teams, respectively, and management for that matter. They're not doing anything. They're not doing any favors for any of these wrestlers. When you have Enzo and Cass, they can go ahead and do the how you doing stuff, and they can go ahead and continue to do the haters and all the gimmick stuff they can do, and that stuff could run out really quick. But wow, you could be doing so much more to build these guys up with props, on location stuff. You could be doing some shooting outside of What is wrong with a little pre-production, WWE? Is it that hard to do? Let's just be honest. Writing and creativity, you know, the best creative minds right now, the best creative writers, they're on television, on big cable television shows, on big scripted dramas and comedies and things like that. Okay? If you're coming in and you're online and you have screenplays and this and that, I mean, you could do things online to help build yourself up. And I'm thinking if people are looking to get themselves looked at by Hollywood, at this point, I don't think WWE is what people want to look at on the resume. Plus, the old school feel that you have to go on the road with the crew. You're working with limited resources. You're trying to do things on the fly. There's just things that you're doing right now that are just not, the environment, the days are different. Everything that WWE does now has become marginalized. You know, they still haven't built anybody up to the tops of the levels of people like I mentioned before. The brand split has been here now for 3 months, roughly. Next week it becomes 3 months. And I'm saying to myself, well, the brand split has stayed. It is solid. There's been no collusion, no flipping over anywhere. The branded pay-per-views are in place. You feel like both brands are distinctly different. But I don't feel like there's anything new about them. SmackDown Live kind of has the feel of what SmackDown has always been to me. Raw, they're taking elements of who he was before, okay? No, they're doing the squash matches and building new talent. And it really feels like Raw has become Nitro of 1996 and 1997. That's what it feels like. And I'm just saying to myself, there were times that WCW itself also felt flat. If not for the talent, some of the things they did pre-NWO were not so exciting. Okay? Nitro, when they first started, and Hulk Hogan was still a face, and the yellow and red still felt, you know, just kind of there. Like, they were building the ratings that they had at that time was what Raw's getting now. It does feel a lot like 1995 Nitro. And that's just where they are. You know, they might take older characters and repurpose them, but does it really make a difference? I don't know. But the thing is, too, is that the fans, wrestling is wrestling. And there was a long time grassroots feel since WCW went away, right? There was always a feel about the cruiserweights. You know, we had a lot of cruiserweight talent that was seen in ECW and WCW. When both of those companies folded, Ring of Honor came into the play. Even TNA to a point. And if you couldn't find programming like those guys, you would still look to New Japan. And you would see what was going on there. Or you'd look to Lucha Libre. So all that right there was still going on in North American wrestling. And Ring of Honor found its way to get a little bit. It got themselves up as a grassroots promotion. It was an indie darling. TNA the same way. And those type of wrestlers that we saw in those promotions, well, basically it was the fact that WWE wanted to always, you know, keep themselves with the WWE style. But now they felt like they need to change for the sake of change and be complacent with what the fans are asking for. Even though we always talk about how the fans might want something, but they might not know what's good for them. And so now we're at the point where we have all these wrestlers that are here. They're working grueling schedules. Some of them are smaller and not so resilient. And they're just not doing enough. If they want the types of guys that they want to have wrestling, then they should do more with the bigger guys. So, Paul Triple H Levesque said, quote, "We are now recruiting globally in a way we have never done before. I want to find the best talent from everywhere in the world. In the last few years, you've seen us much more aggressively recruiting internationally, whether that be Singapore or Malaysia, Germany or England, or Australia or Dubai. We're creating pathways for talent to make it to the WWE." They mentioned they had tryouts in Dubai and London. He talked about the UK Championship Tournament, which, by the way, Jim Ross will be joining Nigel McGuinness on the broadcasts when the program debuts on the WWE Network. So he talks about there's, all these different people that he wants to go after in terms of talent acquisition. Talks about his pride for the Performance Center. Right now, from all over the world, 100 different prospective talents spread across 22 different countries, speaking 16 native languages. And when he answers to the critics saying that the Performance Center style is robotic and there's no individuality needed to succeed in pro wrestling, he says, quote, "The misconception is always the same and is absolutely wrong. We are looking to make our talent as diverse as possible." There's that trigger word. "People say everyone is wearing the same thing and training the same way, yet they are not training the same way. We are grouping people together to work on building certain skills. The core of what we do is the same, yes. You have to learn the same skills, techniques, and foundation when you start. Then when we set you up with people to develop your characters, we want the talent to develop their character, and our job is to help harness the character. We want them, every single one of them, to be unique and have their own feel." Finally, he mentions that, quote, "We try to approach everything differently. I don't want a cookie cutter mold, and I don't want to say this is what a WWE superstar is. We've gotten that reputation over time." Very justifiably so there, Triple H. "But I'm trying to change that perception." Poorly. I'm just adding that. "We want men and women who have a passion to do this and a charisma to connect with the masses. The more you let people get outside of themselves and try to become something more, the more you'll be surprised at all they become. They can become." Excuse me, let me add that. Can. It's sounding like those podcasters out there, those hopeful podcasters that say, well, maybe this guy will do great if he comes into WWE. Or maybe this guy would just do better if he were in WWE. Or I'm sure he would get superstar status, or he would be a big money maker and he would be a main eventer if he would just come to WWE. And listen, all the internet darlings right now, a lot of them are right now front and center as we're watching right now, right? We are all watching the same TV. And how quickly in 1 month does things just go by the wayside and say, okay, the excitement that we had for WrestleMania season goes by. And once again, this is why I call this time of year the WWE Off season. Bruce Pritchett, who was gone for a long time from this company, is back on board. A revolving door. And the circle continues and people keep coming back. But again, that's what we have right now. The revolving door shows that we have people that are getting brought on now to go ahead and come back and help this company. There are no part-time players now to help out this brand. The usual excuse for WWE to go ahead and try to keep things up. We don't have that now. We are bringing people back. We don't have a John Cena to pull out and join in the fun. We don't have, Tyson Fury. We don't have Rob Gronkowski. We don't have Cain Velasquez, all these other names that we had that were all across the board to come help assist and try to get something going with the brands. Trying to get WWE back up somewhere. Well, that didn't happen, as we know. So where are we at with things? Well, let's talk about it. Now, listen, there's not a question that Bruce Pritchett has the experience. And no question that being within the confines of WWE or WWF and working alongside Vince McMahon for many years, Bruce Pritchard, I would imagine, has about as much clout that Pat Patterson had back in the day. And I really feel like Vince McMahon wants to have that one person that can actually help to assist in everything that's going on. Because what it comes down to is Triple H is left to NXT. Stephanie and Shane are not even in the picture right now. Stephanie is handling content, and she does other things in a different outreach for the company from the charity end. And as for Shane, Shane has been out of the picture. It's like he's back working on Chinese cable companies again. I don't know. But when he went away, he went away. I'm not asking him for him to come back, because all those ideas didn't work necessarily. You might have had a little bit of a bump. You might have had a few things that might have kept things interesting. But do you want to take some of the blame of all this? The fact that we don't have a crowd to work with? Is that the real problem? Is it the fact that people are just more occupied? I mean, I actually thought the ratings would go up a bit because we still don't have sports. Not anything to the point where we have sports surrounding us to where we are like totally engaged with it. I mean, we still have another month or so. Like I said, what, another 6 weeks? Most likely before the NBA actually comes back with some kind of a pseudo return of the season so they can finish things up and give us playoffs and a championship. We don't know about Major League Baseball. The NFL, they're hopefully going to start getting things going, but we have to see where they are coming up in August to really know. I know there's been practices, but will they get to actual games? That's the question. There's all that. Your everyday sports that would usually consume what's going on right now with WWE, it's not really there. SmackDown, again, holding about 2 million viewers. Raw did get about 1.9 million viewers average for this week. So that's a bit of a help. But regardless, I mean, you did have to put out Randy Orton and Edge to start things off, bring in Christian, and tease the hell out of getting Christian on board to be a part in an actual possible unsanctioned match, which we heard all of that right there. Well, that said, all this going on, you know, they're doing things. They're trying to be active here. They're trying to do something to bring people together. But there's a lot that's there. When you look at the return of certain people that keep coming back. Okay? People keep coming back. And that's what goes on. And the problem is we don't have any new faces or voices or visionaries that are here to go ahead and change the wrestling world. I mean, if there are, we have former head writers. We have, you know, other people that have been booking and things like that. I mean, at the moment, the newest version, the newest incarnation of a wrestling promotion is AEW, All Elite Wrestling, which is being done by a committee of veteran wrestlers with some kind of an equal share committee type of deal, like a bunch of aldermen with a mayor. I don't even know if it's that, but you have management, and then you have some way, some shape, some form of putting something together and automatically getting on the map as a company. So they've done that. They've accomplished that. Now, they have not made growth, but and again, AEW has not grown past what they started off with. Like, the initial start was good. At the moment, they're still trying to find their way to build an audience. Taking some time. Now, with that said, with Bruce Pritchett coming on board, this is where Vince Russo, I hate to tell you, is absolutely right once again. Why is it that Jim Cornette keeps finding his way back on board? And why is it that a Bruce Pritchett can still find his way somewhere, or Jim Ross for that matter? Take a look. You have a lot of people that are managing companies that have been around for a long time that were very successful, or they did find some success while working in the Attitude Era. Everybody that was part of the Attitude Era in some way, shape, or form have continued to work somewhere. When they were working into the storylines or the booking of a particular promotion, they are out there. But there are some that are not there anymore because that's what's going on. Because, not Bill Watts. We're not seeing him back out of there anymore. Among others. But what happens is, when you have a Vince McMahon on board, Vince McMahon is not the kind of person that wants to go ahead and he's privy for bringing in new talent. It's been obvious he's been very reluctant to really do something to get engagement, to get somebody he will go and engage with and give autonomy, give them the ball to run with it. And there's very few. At this point, we've had Paul Heyman several times, the visionary of ECW. And I mean, listen, even I am going to say I did enjoy having Paul Heyman try to do something to help the brand of WWE. But if he went anywhere else, it would be the same thing. He is making the attempts he would normally do. And I thought some of the things he tried to do, if they could have been panned out, might have been well intended and might have done well. The Lana Rusev wedding angle with Lashley involved. The Mike and Maria Kanellis angle. Trying to bring in new stars like Humberto Carrillo and Andrade into the mix on Raw, and Angel Garza and Seth Rollins, changing him, turning him heel, making him the Monday Night Messiah. Like, there's a lot of things that were done here. It's not as if they didn't try to do certain things. Drew McIntyre, obviously during this time, under Paul Heyman, did get himself to a championship level because he turned main event thanks to Paul Heyman, I would imagine. And then the company, when it goes to the main roster, they can't help themselves but to tinker. And this is the biggest problem that comes to the company as well. This company must almost always change the names of the wrestlers or make it into something they can trademark or market themselves. Total creative control. What's happening now more than anything else is that they need to realize that, their model of, creating stars and creating wrestlers and creating gimmicks and characters, it's not working. And there's a reason why. If it's not working for them, they're not capable of having the creativity to create good names and good stars and do something. Like, the reason they change the names is for the sake of the trademark, so they can market and merchandise and promote as such. Got it. But they've kind of lost their way as to naming stars, right? And then the other thing is that when they do name some stars, they're just horrible, because the names that they're coming up with now are really bad. Really bad. I don't know what you do next. I mean, because you have that. There are some cases where the names are okay. But again, when the WWE machine has to start putting their hands on what they're getting of a star, sometimes you see a star coming in and it's their name and they come in, but it doesn't work. I mean, again, what's the last star they brought in from NXT that really was built good, built well, and brought onto the main roster and successful? If it's not something that they did from the very beginning, and this is because I think when Vince had NXT, I think he was much more cognizant of it. Again, it was pre-WWE Network, and it was a matter of, being visible of all the content and then kind of just stepping away and Triple H being like, okay, Trips, you got this. But because Vince is a bit senile and the rest of that team on the main roster does not watch NXT, it's as if, okay, what we do know about these NXT stars are, they're going to be able to, they're not green. We know they're not green. That's the good thing. That's all they are. Because regardless of what they are, what they've become in NXT, it's like a college degree. It gets you through the front door. But that's it. Really, NXT has become college. Okay? There's the professionals and then there's college sports. Right now, NXT's college. It's college football. It's college basketball. That's what it is. It's something special, something neat, something cult-like about it. With a lot of good stars coming into the ranks. But again, the fact they're being treated like collegiates is the problem. They don't understand that they have these stars that are not rookies or stars that are on the way up. No, that's only in the mindset or the manipulation of WWE. But we know for those people that are in the know of watching professional wrestling outside of this company, they realize that these stars are something more than that. That they have loads of credibility, lots of matches under their belt. Their bump card is full. And they have done a lot in their careers. And they already have a name and something to go with them just because it's not, the size of the scale of WWE fans' expectations. That should not be their problem. Again, if you are playing up to the fans' expectations on that send, the IWC, don't. It doesn't make a difference. We see this on a regular basis where the other wrestling companies are not doing that. They refuse to. They're picking up characters, personalities, and enhancing them. Right? Which is what NXT should be doing. Especially when you have an NXT, an organization like that is able to go and do that. I mean, it's custom made. But again, this is where you kind of trust your stars. You trust your talent that might have a better grasp of what their character is. Or if you tell them what the gimmick is and you quit trying to make them something that they are not able to do. You try to fit a square peg in a round hole. And you give some autonomy of this gimmick to these stars. Because how many of them are actually getting to do something where they get more of what they have? Because remember, you'll see certain stars that come on up, and then again, then they lose some of their luster, or they're either, or we're going to just focus group it, we're going to corporatize it. We're just going to make sure you only get to do a couple of things that you did of the amount of things that you did in NXT. Or we're just going to just change you because we don't like what they came up with in NXT. We don't like what you did in the indies. We just know you were a good wrestler. Somebody recruited you, smart. We trust the recruiters. We trust the people that you work with at NXT. We trust the Performance Center that you know what to do so we can mold you. But the problem is at the top. The people that are doing the molding, okay, they're taking the finishing school. The people that are well polished, ready to go on the main roster. Because really, have we had anybody that was not ready for the main roster out of some of the stars we had? Okay. Keith Lee, Street Profits, Bianca Belair, Shayna Baszler. I mean, really, there was a couple of stars that might have been a little bit green, but they were not too far off. Like Lacey Evans is not too far off. I mean, especially when it comes to the rest of the women's roster. But think about that. We're at a point where some of the stars we have now, again, you forget how many years of experience they have and what they've done. And they've been on television. This is not like something where, nobody's ever seen them before. No, in some cases they have. Now, sorry, it's not on USA Network. And sorry, it's not on Fox. Okay? And just because, everybody in that company, we're not going to watch Impact Wrestling. They're so beneath us. They're just so, so minuscule. So unimportant. Right? I get that. God forbid they try to watch MLW or NWA or any other shows that are out there, or Lucha Underground or anything like that. Oh, God forbid they actually watch any of that. Be afraid to, oh God, we can't, be belligerent and start watching somebody else's product. Oh no, it's going to mess with our WWE style, because there's only one style. There's only one kind of wrestling, and we can't watch anybody else. I mean, you have recruiters that are watching the other companies. And you know what? Some of these stars, they had their way and they made their way up. Only in the very few exceptions have there been those that are able to make it on the way up. And they haven't had to change too much of who they are. Or that there's been a little bit of autonomy given to said stars so that they don't screw up the characters, right? I mean, you got to think about it like this. Get back to my point. The stars that they wouldn't have S the bed on their way up to the main roster. Okay, has anybody really screwed up in matches of the newest call-ups from NXT? Has anybody? All we've really had are a couple of stars that wanted to go back, right? Otherwise, who have you had that has really, done a bad job making their way up? Has Keith Lee or Riddle stunk the place up? No. Has Ricochet? Absolutely not. Has Andrade? Hell no. I mean, think about it. Look at the stars you have and look at what you could be doing with them. But again, it is important to recognize where the mistakes lie. And when you have a corporate entity, a creative team that cannot talk to the bosses in denial. Okay, I got it. When you have been the establishment, okay, for 50 years, okay, WWF to WWE, right? They have taken on all comers and destroyed them, right? They were able to withstand AWA, the Crockett's, right? Jim Crockett Promotions. They were able to withstand UWF and Mid-South. They were able to withstand WCW and NWA, right? The smallest of promotions, withstanding Lucha Underground by far, not even close. Withstanding TNA, which has kind of worked its way back from near extinction to becoming a credible Impact Wrestling again. To AEW.
Okay, that's going to do it for this week. My voice will be better next week. Until then, come back for another Wrestling is Real podcast, because wrestling needs us.
Thank you for listening to the Wrestling is Real podcast. You can find all previous episodes at wrestlingisreal.com or subscribe to the show on all major podcast outlets, including Apple, Amazon, Google, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. Follow the King of Podcasts on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at King of Podcasts, and search King of Podcasts on YouTube, or type youtube.com/JBRASCO951. This has been a presentation of the King of Podcasts Radio Network.